The mysterious knock. It was a quiet night on the military base. The only sound was the soft rustling of the wind outside the barracks. Inside, the soldier, Jack, sat at his desk, staring at the blank screen of his computer. He had been on duty for hours, with no action, no missions, and nothing to do but wait. He was used to the quiet, the long hours, and the boredom that came with being stationed in such a remote place. But tonight felt different. There was something in the eerie stillness that made the hairs on the back of Jack's neck stand up. He couldn't explain it, but something told him that tonight wouldn't be like the others. He glanced at the clock. It was almost midnight. He sighed and leaned back in his chair, trying to fight the fatigue that threatened to overwhelm him. Suddenly, a soft knock on the door broke the silence. Jack's heart skipped a beat. It was a strange sound, out of place in the dead of night. He frowned, wondering who could be visiting at this hour. The rest of the base was asleep, and the gates were locked. There was no reason anyone should be out here. He stood up slowly, his boots echoing in the empty room as he crossed to the door. He hesitated for a moment, his hand resting on the doorknob. Should he answer it? It could be a fellow soldier with an urgent message, or maybe a late-night delivery. But the feeling of unease lingered, making him second-guess his every move. With a deep breath, Jack opened the door. Standing in front of him was the last thing he expected. Small alien child. She was no taller than a human girl of 6 or 7, but there was no mistaking what she was. Her skin was pale blue, almost translucent, and her hair was a wild tangle of silver-white strands that shimmered in the moonlight. She wore a simple, torn dress that barely covered her tiny frame, and her eyes, huge and black, looked up at him with a mix of fear and desperation. Her hands trembled as she held out a small, sad piece of bread, barely enough for a single bite. "Please, human. Just one bite for my sister," she said in broken English, her voice soft but urgent. Jack froze, staring at her in shock. His mind raced, trying to process what he was seeing. An alien child, here on Earth. But how had she gotten past the security? How had she gotten into the base without anyone noticing? His eyes darted around, searching for any signs of danger, but there was nothing. Just the child, standing in front of him, looking helpless. He knelt down to her level, trying to understand. "What do you mean? Where is your sister?" he asked, his voice soft but cautious. The child glanced over her shoulder nervously, as if expecting someone to jump out at them. "She is sick," she whispered. "She needs food, ... Please help her." Jack felt a pang of sympathy for the little girl, but something didn't sit right. Why was she here? What did she want from him? There were so many questions, but the first one that came to his mind was, should he help her? He glanced at the piece of bread she offered, then back at her innocent face. It was hard to deny the desperation in her eyes. But was it a trap? Was this some kind of alien trick? He had no way of knowing. Everything about this situation screamed wrong, but he couldn't bring himself to turn away a child in need. He took the bread from her hands, his fingers brushing against hers. There was a strange coldness to her skin, something that sent another shiver down his spine. "Wait here," Jack said, standing up. "I'll go see if I can get help for your sister." The child shook her head, her eyes widening in panic. "No," she cried, stepping forward. "She needs you now. Please, just one bite for her. Just one." Jack's heart clenched at her words, but his training kicked in. He had to think logically. This was not a normal situation. He had to be careful. But as he looked at the child's pleading face, something inside him softened. The cold, hard walls he had built around himself over the years began to crack. "Okay," he said quietly, "I'll help you. But you need to tell me everything. What happened to your sister? Where is she?" The child nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving his. She seemed to relax just a little, as if she knew she could trust him. "I came from far away," she began, her voice shaking. "My ship crashed. My sister, she was hurt. We have no food, no medicine. She's dying." Jack felt a weight settle in his chest. He had heard rumors of alien life forms, of encounters with extraterrestrials, but never had he imagined meeting one like this. A child, alone, desperate, and now, here she was, standing on his doorstep, asking for his help. "What's your name?" Jack asked, his voice softening. The girl hesitated before answering, her voice barely above a whisper. "Lena," she said, "please, help my sister, human, please." As Jack looked into her dark eyes, he knew one thing for certain. This was no ordinary mission. This was something far bigger than anything he had ever faced before, and whether he liked it or not, he was about to be a part of it. The alien child's story. Jack couldn't stop thinking about Lena as he led her to the small break room inside the barracks. The strange quietness that had settled around them was unnerving. It was as if the whole world outside had vanished, leaving only him, the alien child, and the unanswered questions hanging in the air once inside. Jack motioned for Lena to sit at the small metal table, and he took the seat opposite her. He tried to keep his voice calm, but he couldn't help the trembling in his hands. "Lena," he started, "tell me everything. How did you end up here? Where is your sister?" Lena looked down at the small piece of bread she had been clutching so desperately, her fingers trembling. For a moment, Jack wondered if she might break down, but she didn't. Instead, her gaze lifted to meet his, her eyes large and filled with a mix of fear and hope. "We came from far away," Lena began slowly, her voice soft but steady. "A different planet. We were part of a group that traveled across the stars. But one day, our ship was attacked by soldiers. I don't know who they were, but they shot our ship down. My sister and I were the only ones who survived the crash." Jack's stomach twisted as he listened to the story. An alien ship, shot down, survivors alone on Earth. It sounded like something out of a movie, but Lena's voice, filled with such quiet sorrow, made it clear that this was real, and she was living through it. "We were alone," she continued, her voice breaking slightly. "We didn't know what to do. My sister, she's sick. The food on the ship was all gone. We were lost." Lena paused, looking up at Jack as though trying to read his face. "I didn't know where to go, but I heard stories from my people about humans. I heard that they could help. So, I came here. I thought, maybe you could help." Jack listened closely, every word from the child tugging at his heartstrings. He could feel her pain, her helplessness, but there was something about the story that didn't sit right with him. It wasn't the fear in her voice, or the way she looked at him with such trust. It was the way she spoke about the soldiers who attacked her ship. There was something more to it. Something she wasn't saying. "What happened to the others on your ship?" Jack asked carefully, trying not to make it sound like an accusation. "Were they all ... killed?" Lena's face darkened as she looked down at the table, her fingers curling around the edge of the bread she had brought with her. "They didn't die," she whispered, But they were taken. The soldiers took them. I don't know where they are now. I think they single quotes being used. Her voice faltered at the end, as though the words themselves were too painful to say. Jack's heart raced as he processed what she had said. Taken, used. He couldn't begin to imagine what that could mean. But one thing was clear: Sister wasn't the only one in danger. There were more of her kind, somewhere out there, being held captive. How is your sister? Jack asked, trying to steer the conversation back to the immediate problem. Where is she now? How can I help? Lena's eyes filled with tears, and she wiped them away quickly, as though ashamed of her weakness. She's in a room, not far from here, in the base. I found her hiding in the storage room, but she's too weak to move. I don't know what's wrong with her. She's just ... not waking up. Her voice trembled as she spoke. I can't do it alone. Please ... I need your help. You're my only hope. Jack stood up, pacing back and forth. He had to think. There was so much to consider. The child, her sister, the soldiers, the missing aliens. It was all connected somehow, but how? And what did he do now? I'll help you, Jack said finally, his voice firm but full of uncertainty. But we need to be careful. I don't know what's going on, Lena, but I can't just walk in there and expect everything to go smoothly. I'll need backup. I'll need to get more information. Can you tell me where your sister is? How do I find her? Lena nodded eagerly, her eyes lighting up with a spark of hope. Yes, she whispered, she's in the storage room in the back. But be careful, human. There are others watching. They won't let you take her. Jack felt a chill run through him as he thought about what Lena had just said. Others watching, the soldiers, the ones who had attacked the ship. He had no idea how deep this went, but one thing was clear. He couldn't do this alone. I'll go now, Jack said, his mind already racing with plans. Stay here and don't move. I'll get your sister, and we'll figure out what's going on. Just trust me, okay? Lena's eyes filled with gratitude, and she nodded. Thank you, human. You don't know what this means to me. Jack turned and left the room, his heart heavy with the weight of the decision he had just made. As he walked down the narrow hallway toward the storage room, his mind raced. There were so many unknowns, so many risks. But one thing kept repeating in his mind. He couldn't leave Lena's sister behind. The mission had just begun, and Jack knew that nothing would ever be the same again. An unexpected discovery. Jack crept through the dimly lit hallways of the military base, each step heavier than the last. His thoughts were a whirlwind. Lena's story, her plea for help, the soldiers who attacked her ship, and the strange alien technology he had yet to uncover. Nothing made sense, but one thing was clear. There was something much bigger going on than he had first imagined. The stakes had suddenly become far higher than a simple rescue mission. He reached the storage area at the back of the base. The air felt colder here, and the shadows seemed to stretch longer, as though something was waiting in the darkness. Jack's heart raced as he paused at the entrance, listening for any sounds. Everything was eerily quiet, save for the faint hum of machines in the distance. He checked his rifle one more time, making sure it was ready, though he hoped he wouldn't need it. The storage room doors were locked, but Jack quickly disabled the security system with a small, portable device he carried on him. As the door slid open with a soft hiss, the cold air inside hit him like a wave, sending a shiver down his spine. The room was dark, filled with crates and large pieces of equipment, but it was also unusually well kept for a storage area. Something about it didn't sit right. He stepped inside cautiously, his eyes scanning the room for any signs of movement. At first, there was nothing, just rows of boxes and old supplies. But then, in the far corner, something caught his eye. There, lying in the shadows, was a figure. At first glance, it looked like a human, but as Jack moved closer, he realized it was anything but. The figure was an alien, her skin a deep shade of green with faint, glowing markings running along her limbs. Her body was almost unnaturally still, as if frozen in time. She was connected to a series of machines that Jack didn't recognize, wires and tubes wrapped around her like a cocoon. Jack's breath caught in his throat. He had found her, the sister. But what was happening to her? As he knelt down beside her, the eerie silence of the room was broken by a low mechanical hum. The machines around her seemed to be keeping her alive, but they were also feeding something into hers, something Jack couldn't understand. The more he looked, the more it became clear. This wasn't just a medical setup. This was something else entirely. The alien's eyes fluttered, then slowly opened, revealing a pair of large, black pupils. Jack froze, unsure of what to do. The alien's gaze locked onto his, and for a moment neither of them moved. Then, in a voice that was barely a whisper, she spoke. Who are you?" she asked, her voice weak and strained. "I'm here to help," Jack replied quickly, trying to sound reassuring. "I'm a soldier. I'm here to get you out of here." The alien blinked, confusion flickering in her eyes. You're not one of them?" she asked, her voice trembling. With fear, Jack shook his head. "No, I'm not with them. I'm here to take you somewhere safe." The alien stared at him for a long moment before her gaze flickered to the machines surrounding her. "I don't think you can," she said softly. I'm not like you. I can't survive without this." Jack's brow furrowed as he glanced around the room. There was a complicated setup of equipment that seemed to be keeping her alive, but it didn't make sense. "What do you mean?" he asked, leaning in closer. "What's happening here? Why are they doing this to you?" The alien's face twisted, with a mix of pain and frustration. "We were caught," she whispered, "by the ones who came after us. They don't care about us. They care about what's inside of us, what we can give them." Jack felt his blood run cold. "What do they want from you?" "They want to use us," she said, her voice barely audible. "Our energy, our abilities. We're not just aliens. We have powers that they need. But they don't understand. They think they can control it. They don't know how dangerous it is." Jack was stunned. This was bigger than anything he had ever imagined. Powers, abilities. The military had no idea what they were dealing with. And he had no idea how far this conspiracy went. But one thing was clear. He had to get this alien out of here before the soldiers found her. "I'll help you," Jack said again, more firmly this time. "We're getting out of here. Don't worry." The alien's eyes softened slightly, though her fear remained. "It's too late for me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "But if you want to save my sister, you have to leave now, before they find you." Jack's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean? I thought you were her sister." The alien shook her head weakly. I'm not the one you're looking for. My sister, she's the one they're really after. She's the one who can heal. She's the one who can save you all." Jack was confused, but the urgency in her voice told him to act quickly. "Where is she?" he demanded. "Tell me where to find her." The alien nodded faintly and pointed weakly to the far corner of the room. "In there," she said, "but you must hurry. Time is running out." With the alien's words echoing in his mind, Jack sprang to his feet and ran to the designated spot. As he opened the small door, he found what he was looking for, a containment chamber, just like the one where Lena had been hiding. But this time, the air felt colder, the darkness deeper, and in the center of the chamber, lying on the floor, was a figure unlike any Jack had ever seen before. This wasn't just an alien. This was something ... different, something powerful, and Jack knew, with a shiver of dread, that he was about to uncover a secret far darker than he could have imagined. The rescue mission Jack stood frozen at the entrance of the containment chamber, his mind racing. He could feel his pulse quicken as the realization dawned on him. This wasn't just a rescue anymore. It was a race against time, against something he didn't fully understand. The alien child, Lena, had led him here, and now he was face to face with what might be their only hope, the sister who could save them all. The figure lying motionless in the center of the chamber was unlike anything Jack had ever seen. Her skin was not the pale blue of Lena, but a deep, shimmering violet. Her hair, long and ethereal, seemed to move on its own, as though alive. She was surrounded by a web of intricate alien technology wires and tubes running from her body to various machines, keeping her tethered to this cold, sterile environment. The machines hummed and blinked, and the entire room felt charged with a strange energy. It was as though every second spent here was another second stolen from her life. Jack's heart pounded in his chest as he stepped forward. Every instinct told him to be cautious, to gather more intel, to plan his next move carefully. But in that moment, he knew he couldn't wait any longer. The alien child had said it was too late for her, but her sister, she was the key, the one with the power to heal. With every step closer, Jack's thoughts raced. What if he couldn't help her? What if the alien powers were something beyond his understanding, beyond anything he could control? But there was no turning back. Now he had promised to help, and promises were things Jack didn't break. He approached the sister's side cautiously. She didn't move, her eyes closed in what seemed like a deep slumber. Her breathing was shallow, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Jack placed a hand on the cold surface of the chamber, feeling the pulse of energy that seemed to flow through it. The faint hum of the machines vibrated through his fingertips. He couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a matter of physical recovery. There was something else, something far more powerful at play here. "How do I wake you?" Jack whispered, though he knew the question was for no one but himself. The alien sister remained still, unresponsive. He turned, his gaze scanning the room for any kind of instructions, any hint that could help him understand the alien technology. The walls were lined with symbols, unfamiliar glyphs that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. Jack's mind raced as he tried to decipher them, but they were nothing he'd ever seen before. His eyes narrowed, frustration building. He couldn't waste time figuring out alien writing. He had to act, as Jack stood there, helpless for a moment. He remembered something Lena had said. They think they can control it. They don't know how dangerous it is. What did that mean? Was this technology something that was keeping the alien sister alive, or was it something more sinister? Was it feeding on her power? Could it be draining her life force instead of healing her? His eyes snapped back to the sister's form. He had to trust his instincts. There had to be a way to disconnect her from these machines, to give her a chance to survive. Jack carefully examined the wires and tubes connected to her, noting the faint glow emanating from the connections. He found the main interface, a series of buttons on a control panel beside the chamber. Without thinking, Jack began pressing buttons at random, hoping to break the connection without causing harm. The machines hummed louder for a moment, then suddenly stopped, the room falling into an eerie silence. The alien sister didn't stir. Panic surged through Jack. Had he done something wrong? Had he made a mistake? Then a soft noise broke the silence, of faint, almost imperceptible breathing. Jack's heart skipped a beat. She was still alive. He took a step back, watching her closely. The glow around her began to fade, and for a brief moment, Jack thought he had failed. But then, slowly, her eyelids fluttered open. Her gaze was slow and unfocused at first, as though she had just awoken from a long sleep. Her eyes, a striking shade of violet, locked onto Jack's, and she blinked, confusion clouding her expression. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice soft but laced with a faint hint of panic. "You're safe now," Jack said, his voice steady but with a hint of urgency. "I'm here to help. We need to get you out of here." The alien sister tried to sit up, her body trembling slightly as if the effort was too much. She winced and clutched her head, a flash of pain crossing her features. Jack stepped closer, kneeling beside her. He didn't know how to help her physically, but there was no way he was leaving her behind. Not now. Not after everything. "I don't have much time," she whispered. "They're coming. The soldiers. They'll come for me. They won't let me leave." Jack's mind raced. The soldiers, they couldn't be far behind. The alien child had warned him, but it hadn't quite sunk in until now. They were about to be hunted again. The sense of urgency, of danger, began to press down on him. They had to move, and they had to move fast. "I won't let them take you," Jack said firmly, his grip tightening on the sister's arm to help her up. "We're getting you out of here." But just as Jack helped the alien sister to her feet, the door to the chamber slid open with a sharp hiss. Jack froze, his heart pounding in his chest. Standing in the doorway were two soldiers, their rifles raised and their eyes locked onto him. "Freeze," one of the soldiers barked. "You're not going anywhere." For a moment, everything seemed to slow down. Jack's mind raced, weighing his options. There was no way he could fight them off and escape with the alien sister at the same time, but he couldn't let her fall into their hands, not after everything they'd been through. "Move, now," Jack shouted, pushing the alien sister toward the back exit. He wasn't sure how much time he had, but he couldn't wait any longer. The soldier closest to him aimed his rifle, but Jack was faster. He grabbed a nearby object, an old, heavy crate, tossed it toward the soldiers. The impact distracted them just long enough for Jack to make his move. "Go," Jack shouted to the alien sister, with the soldiers momentarily stunned. Jack grabbed her arm and pulled her through the back exit, toward whatever safety he could find. But the chase had just begun, and Jack knew they wouldn't stop until they were caught. The mission was far from over. The truth unveiled. The pounding of Jack's boots echoed in the narrow hallways as he pulled the alien sister, whose name he still didn't know, through the dark corridors. His heart raced, not only from the sprint, but also from the tension hanging in the air. The soldiers were after them, and every moment they spent running made it more likely they'd be caught. He had no idea where he was going, only that he had to get them both out of here. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice strained but determined as she stumbled slightly beside him. Her breath was shallow, and she was clearly still weak. But there was a fire in her eyes that told Jack she wasn't giving up without a fight. "I don't know yet," Jack admitted between breaths. But we need to keep moving. There's a way out, I'm sure of it. The alien sister nodded, her eyes scanning their surroundings as they ran. She was no longer just a helpless figure. There was a strength in her that Jack hadn't seen before. She was aware of her own powers, of what she could do, and Jack had no idea how far those abilities stretched. Could she heal him if he were hurt? Could she stop the soldiers from catching them? As they rounded another corner, Jack skidded to a halt. The hallway ahead was blocked by a group of soldiers, their rifles aimed directly at him. They'd anticipated their escape, and there was nowhere left to go. Hands where I can see them. One of the soldiers barked, his voice cold and unyielding. You're not going anywhere. Jack felt his throat tighten as he looked over at the alien sister. Her face, once pale and weak, was now filled with a quiet, determined resolve. She stood tall, as if preparing for something, though Jack had no idea what. She didn't flinch, not even a little, when the soldiers raised their weapons. Before Jack could react, she stepped forward. You don't understand, she said calmly, her voice almost too quiet to be heard over the tense silence of the hallway. We are not your enemies. The soldiers exchanged confused glances, but their weapons remained aimed at them. Shut up, one of them shouted. You're coming with us now. But the alien sister didn't flinch. Instead, she raised one hand slowly, her fingers glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. The air around them seemed to hum with energy, and Jack watched in awe as the soldiers seemed to freeze in place. It wasn't a physical freeze. There was no visible force holding them, but Jack could see it in their eyes. They were locked, in place, unable to move, unable to speak. The alien sister's eyes closed for a moment, and Jack could feel the tension in the air, as if the very space around them was charged with power. When she opened her eyes again, they were darker, more intense than before. You don't know what you're dealing with, she said, her voice calm but filled with an undeniable power. My people have been hunted for centuries, not because we are dangerous, but because we can heal. We have powers that you cannot control, powers that are far beyond anything you can understand. Jack's eyes widened. Powers that could heal, was that what she had meant before when she spoke about being used? He had heard her sister Lena mention their abilities, but this was more than he had imagined. The soldiers, still frozen in place, didn't respond. Their expressions were blank, almost like they were under some kind of trance. Jack could see their confusion, but the alien sister didn't seem to care. She walked right past them, pulling Jack along. We need to move now, she said, urgency in her voice. They'll figure out what's happening soon. And when they do, they'll come for me. They'll come for all of us. Jack followed, barely able to process everything he'd just heard. His thoughts raced. A race against time, against powers he didn't understand, and enemies who would stop at nothing to control them. He had been sent to do a simple rescue mission, but it had turned into something far more complex. These aliens weren't just survivors of a crash. They were something more, something the soldiers had been trying to capture for far too long. As they reached a small maintenance door at the end of the hall, the alien sister stopped again. This will take us to the tunnels under the base, she said. We can escape through there, but once we leave, there's no going back. Jack nodded, his mind spinning. I understand, he said. We have to leave before they send reinforcements. He knew they were running out of time. The soldiers might be frozen for now, but they wouldn't stay that way forever. And there was still so much to uncover about the aliens' abilities, about the soldiers' true intentions. The alien sister opened the door, and Jack stepped into the dimly lit corridor that lay beyond. As they made their way through the dark, underground tunnels, Jack's mind buzzed with questions. What else? Were they hiding? Why were they so desperate to control the aliens? And what exactly were these powers the aliens possessed? "I'll explain everything," the alien sister said, as though reading his mind. "But first, we need to survive. Only then can we stop them." As they moved deeper into the tunnels, Jack felt a cold weight settle in his chest. He didn't know how or when this all started, but he knew one thing for sure. Their lives and the fate of these aliens would never be the same, and neither would his. The soldier's decision, the tunnels stretched ahead like an endless maze, the damp walls echoing every step Jack took. His breath was heavy, and the alien sister, though weak, moved with a quiet determination beside him. She led the way, her steps confident despite the exhaustion that clung to her like a second skin. Jack couldn't help but admire her resolve, even as the weight of their situation pressed down on him. They had been running for what felt like hours, winding through the labyrinthian passages beneath the base. Every now and then, Jack would glance over his shoulder, half expecting to see soldiers closing in on them, but there was no sign of anyone pursuing yet. The soldiers in the hallway, frozen by the alien sister's powers, hadn't reacted, but Jack knew that wouldn't last. They would soon figure out what had happened. They would come after them, and when they did, it would be more than just a fight for survival. "How much farther?" Jack asked, his voice echoing in the narrow corridor. "We're almost there," the alien sister said, her voice low but steady. "There's a safe house not far from here. My people. They have a way to keep us hidden for a while. We just need to reach it." Jack nodded, trying to push the growing unease from his mind. They had to reach the safe house. They had to find out what was really going on. Why had these soldiers attacked their ship? What was the true purpose of capturing these aliens? But as they continued through the tunnels, Jack's thoughts kept circling back to one thing: his decision. He was a soldier. His duty was to protect his country, his people. He had sworn an oath to serve, but everything had changed. The aliens weren't just invaders. They weren't a threat. They were refugees, survivors of an attack. And the more Jack learned about them, the more he realized they had been hunted for reasons far beyond anything he had imagined. He glanced at the alien sister again. She wasn't just a victim. She was a symbol of something far greater, a power that could change everything. She had powers that humans could never control, abilities that the soldiers wanted to harness, powers that could heal, powers that could save lives or destroy them. The decision he had been avoiding now loomed larger than ever. Should he turn them in? Should he alert his superiors about what he had uncovered? The military would surely want to interrogate her, use her powers for their own gain, but that would mean betraying everything he had come to believe in, betraying the promise he had made to the alien child, Lena. To her sister, Jack stopped, his mind whirling with the enormity of the choice before him. He could go back, tell his superiors, and report everything he had learned, but that would mean condemning the alien sisters, condemning their people. He couldn't do it, not after everything he had seen, not after witnessing their suffering. The alien sister turned to him, her eyes sharp and knowing. She had seen the conflict in his expression, had felt the hesitation in his every step. "You're thinking about it," she said quietly. "Whether to help us, whether to betray your people for ours." Jack didn't respond at first. but the weight of her words hit him harder than anything else. She knew exactly what was at stake. "I don't know what to do," Jack admitted, his voice strained. "I'm a soldier. My job is to protect my people. But I can't ignore what I've seen. You're not the enemy." She paused for a moment, considering his words. Then she spoke again, her voice softer this time, filled with understanding. "I know you're torn, but sometimes the right decision isn't about who we're meant to serve. It's about what we believe in, what's worth protecting." Jack's heart sank as he thought about his fellow soldiers, the ones who were hunting these innocent beings. Could he really betray his own people, knowing what he now knew? He had joined the military to serve his country, to protect it from real threats. But the real threat was never these aliens. It was the blind pursuit of power, the desire to control and manipulate what they didn't understand. The alien sister continued, her voice steady but filled with a quiet urgency. "We are not your enemies. We came here to survive, to heal. But if we are captured, it will be the end of us, and the end of any chance for peace. We are being hunted because of what we are, but you have the power to change that. You have the power to stop it." Jack clenched his fists, the weight of her words pressing down on him. He had no choice but to protect her, to protect Lena and the others. The path ahead was unclear, but there was one thing Jack knew for certain now. He couldn't turn back, no matter what the cost. The alien sister paused again, sensing his resolve. "Thank you," she whispered. Jack gave a slight nod, his eyes filled with a mixture of determination and fear. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he would stand by them. He would fight for them. They weren't alone anymore. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed down the tunnel, breaking the silence. Jack's eyes widened. "They're coming," he said, his voice low but urgent. "We need to move." Now the alien sister nodded, her expression hardening. "They won't stop until they have us, but we won't let them win." With that, they sprinted forward, racing through the dark passageways as the sound of approaching soldiers grew louder. The decision had been made. Jack had chosen his side. There was no turning back now. They would fight, and they would do whatever it took to survive. The heartwarming conclusion, the tunnels twisted and turned, leading Jack and the alien sister deeper into the heart of the base, where the walls grew colder and the shadows seemed to stretch even longer. The echo of their footsteps was all that could be heard, the thrum of their own heartbeat louder than anything around them. Jack didn't look back. He couldn't afford to. The soldiers were closing in, and there was no time to waste. As they rounded yet another corner, Jack finally saw it, the same house. It was a small, inconspicuous door at the end of a narrow corridor, barely noticeable against the dark, industrial. But to Jack, it was a beacon of hope, a place where they could regroup, plan, and figure out their next move. The alien sister moved with surprising speed, despite her exhaustion. She reached the door first and quickly swiped a key card, the door sliding open with a soft hiss. Jack followed closely behind, his eyes scanning the room for any sign of danger. It was a small, dimly lit room with basic furnishings, nothing extravagant, just a safe haven. In the center, a holographic map flickered to life as the alien sister approached a nearby console. "Where are we?" Jack asked, his voice low. "Who else is here?" The alien sister didn't answer right away. She was focused on the map, her fingers moving quickly over the controls. The map showed various points around the world, each one blinking in rapid succession. Jack watched closely, trying to make sense of it. This wasn't just a safe house, it was a command center, a place of resistance. We've been monitoring human military movements, the alien sister finally explained, her voice steady. This is where we hide, where we protect ourselves. But it's not just about survival anymore. It's about preventing what happened to us from happening to others. We need to stop the military from capturing any more of my people. Jack's mind was racing. What she was saying was huge, bigger than anything he had ever imagined. This wasn't just about saving two alien sisters. It was about stopping a war no one knew was happening. You've been hiding, Jack said, more to himself than to her. For how long? Longer than I care to admit, she replied. But it's getting worse. The soldiers are getting closer, and we don't have much time left. If they find us, they'll take everything. Our people, our power. They'll use it to control humanity. Jack's stomach tightened. He had seen a glimpse of what the aliens were capable of, and the thought of that kind of power being misused was terrifying. But they couldn't let it happen. Not on his watch. We won't let that happen, Jack said, his voice firm. I won't let them take you or anyone else. The alien sister looked at him, her eyes softening. You don't have to do this, she said, her voice quieter now. You could walk away. You could turn us in and pretend you never saw any of this. But you didn't. You stayed, and for that, I'm grateful. Jack looked down at his hands, remembering how he had almost walked away. How close he had come to betraying everything he had come to believe in. But in that moment, he knew he had made the right choice. The truth was, he had never been alone in this fight. He had found something worth fighting for, before Jack could respond. The door to the safe house suddenly slid open with a loud screech. His heart leaped in his chest as soldiers flooded in, their weapons raised, their faces filled with determination. But before Jack could react, the alien sister stepped forward. She raised her hand, her fingers glowing with that familiar energy. And for the first time, Jack saw the full extent of her powers. The soldiers froze, their bodies immobilized, as if time itself had stopped. The air around them crackled with energy, and Jack could feel the tension building in the room. You will not take us, the alien sister said, her voice echoing in the stillness of the room. Not today, not ever. The soldiers, unable to move or speak, stood still as statues, their weapons now useless at their sides. The alien sister's gaze was focused, unwavering, and Jack felt a sense of awe as he watched her power unfold. But then, something unexpected happened. The soldiers didn't fall to their knees in fear, nor did they lash out in anger. Instead, one of them, an older man with graying hair, looked at the alien sister and spoke, his voice soft but steady. We were never your enemies, he said, his words almost a whisper. We were following orders, but we don't have to anymore. Jack blinked in surprise. What do you mean? He asked, his confusion mirrored on the alien sister's face. The soldier stepped forward slightly, his eyes meeting Jack's. We were sent to capture you, to take you back to our commanders. But we've seen what they want to do. We've seen how they've been manipulating the truth. We can't let it continue. For a moment, everything was still, the tension hanging thick in the air. Jack glanced at the alien sister, and she seemed to relax just a fraction. The soldier, despite his position, had chosen a different path. He had made his decision. You're free, the soldier said, his voice full of resolve. We're not going to stop you. Go and don't look back. Jack felt a weight lift off his shoulders as the alien sister nodded in silent gratitude. She turned to him, her eyes filled with something deeper than reliefs, something like hope. The soldier stepped aside, and the way was clear. The alien sister took one last look at the soldiers, her expression softening as if understanding that some battles were not fought with violence, but with choices. As they stepped into the unknown, Jack felt the wind of change begin to stir around them. The fight was far from over, but they had made their stand. They had chosen to fight not for victory, but for survival and for the future. "Thank you," the alien sister said quietly as they walked away from the base into the night. Jack smiled, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time: peace. The journey ahead would be dangerous, but for the first time, he felt like he was fighting for the right cause. And as they disappeared into the shadows, Jack knew that no matter what happened next, they had made a difference.